This week's episode of Aussie Tech Heads is brought to you by Start New Company. Register your company immediately today with ASIC. ABN, TFN, GST registration is also available directly from the portal. Also set up your family trust and self-managed superannuation fund and more. All at startnewcompany.com.au. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/startnewco and keep an eye out for our regular specials. Start your new company now within 10 minutes of lodgement. All legal company documentation provided after registration. startnewcompany.com.au. And also brought to you by athwebhosting.com.au. All our servers are operating on SSD drives, immediate activation, SSL certificates, Aussie support, domain registration, and more. Easy install WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, and 300 other one-click installations. Generous space and bandwidth, auto backups, WordPress help and maintenance plans are also available on Contact. If your webpage is important for your business or your life, contact us today. Aussie support, secure services, athwebhosting.com.au. And now for the show.
Welcome to episode 688 of the Aussie Tech Heads, recorded on the 6th of August 2020. This is my co-host Will Tompkinson, and I'm the host Jason Oakley. Hey, Jace.
Again?
Did I get you?
Hey, Rocky.
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
The only reason you didn't get me is because I wasn't paying attention. I was just working on. I was just waiting until you pointed and I switched and I went, hang on.
Hang on. What did he say? I was going to say, I'm Will Tompkinson. This is my co-host Jason Oakley.
Won't be the first time. Probably not the last either.
How's stuff?
Hot today. We hit 32 today.
Jeez, dude.
I know. It's nuts. It's like, I don't know what's going on. We had, what do we have, like 4? I think it was 4 last night. And 32 today.
It's 6 now here, but our top was 17.
17.
Man, a sweltering 17. In the UK, that's when you go out in your bathers.
No, no,
The Blackpool rocks.
It's so, the weather's so weird at the moment. It's so, I got some massive fires around too. There's just so much smoke in there at the moment.
Really?
Yeah.
What's that all from?
I'm guessing it's around the range. But I don't know. It's all west. Like when we're coming home in the afternoon, you look west and you just see a massive, thick smoke haze. So
Jeez.
something's not quite kosher at the moment.
Yep. I've been spending up all my monies.
Yes, you've had an interesting couple of weeks.
3/4 of the roof guttering replaced, which is good because most of it was rusty, and not being much of a guttering as so much of a hole here and there where the water just came straight down onto the ground and flooded the back and front yard. So that's fixed up. I had a leak in the ensuite shower, which was getting into the walk-in room. So I've got that all resealed. So there goes about $3,000. And then the dog got sick, so he's been to the vet nearly all this week, trying to get him well again. So,
and of course, as we know, vets do it for the love, not the money.
Yeah. And then at some stage I'll get the electrical wiring done that I've been talking about, but it might have to wait till next month. Or next year, yeah.
Someone might give it to you for Christmas present and get your house rewired.
Yeah. Thank you. That would be a lovely present from you, Will.
Well, I was going to say our Patreons might be able to do it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, we Patreon database is growing bigger every week. We now have 5 Patreons.
Woo.
They're Chris, David Bird, Daniel and Amanda D, Bouncing Yellow Skull, and see, what did we say it was? See Denview. So
David Byrne, wasn't he the lead singer of Talking Heads?
it should be. Bird
Yeah.
is a word.
I didn't know we were that famous. Thank you, sir.
Well, if that's the case, you tight son of a...
You should have a bucket or two, right?
But, yeah, just, remind you guys about Patreon, obviously, AussieTechHeads.com. Find all the information out there, or you can go to patreon.com/AussieTechHeads.
Anything.com/AussieTechHeads works at this stage.
Pretty much, it's easy
We're
though.
everywhere.
Or you can go to Aussie Tech Heads to find out where you can go to on Aussie Tech Head.
You go to AussieTechHeads.com/AussieTechHeads. How about that?
Aussie Tech,
Inception.
Aussie Techception.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically the it helps a lot, guys. The current patrons are paying for our streaming software, so that's good.
Keeps us on the air.
It's not super ideal because Patreon does take more than I think a fair share, but you do what you got to do to. We can't get monetized on YouTube. We're not big enough. We're not popular enough. Apparently, nobody loves us. So, but all the money that will be raised on this might even go to buy Glenn a PC that is capable of actually streaming, not like his
VIC 20.
his 486 from 1996 that he's got running, I think. So. But,
unhackable because nobody worries about that operating.
It's still running Windows 3.1 with he's
3.11 work groups.
Yeah, that's right. He's got to have the work groups.
Yeah.
He's using the
Trumpet windsock.
TCPFE. Yeah, good old trumpet windsock. That was great. Between
awesome.
that and the Norton Laplink, you sorted.
I'm trying to think. There was a software that had a weird name, and you could share out your network through one computer.
I was thinking exactly the same thing. Was it WinTCP or something?
Something.
Yeah, I used to
something else.
I used to use it all the time for 3.11 back in the day to make your computer accessible on the World Wide Web. It was Winsock, wasn't it? It was a product of Winsock.
Another weird name.
We're going to be looking this up for the whole time now. You realise this.
The rest of the show, yeah.
But yeah, no, it does help, guys. So obviously don't feel obliged to do it, but if you do, just just be mindful that it does actually help us out a great deal, and we will only be putting it to use for things to help the show. So yeah, what's Trumpet Windsock?
Yeah, that was to connect, but there was another one that was really popular that everyone shared out the connection to everybody else in the house.
Yes.
I can't think, but it had some weird name.
It did, and it was actually a really expensive software that just happened to fit on a floppy disk very easily.
And everybody had it.
Yeah, I remember that one. Well, no point.
You could probably get it from Two Cows.
Is Two Cows still around?
Yes.
Oh, at least I love Two Cows.
All my websites are registered through Two Cows affiliate Hover.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Two Cows was awesome. Making the internet better since 1993.
Yeah.
I used to go there all the time.
Man, this is going to drive me crazy.
Yeah, I know, right?
We try and talk about this at one other time, and I just gave up because I couldn't remember what it was called.
And the irony is, I actually was watching a guy on YouTube the other day getting Windows 3.11 working on a new computer, and he loaded that bit of software up.
You're killing me, man.
So I actually remember seeing it.
We'll just pause here while Will goes through his YouTube
I get to my history and find it. But anyway.
Web phone, Freetel, Net2 phone. Remember all these? WS chat.
Yeah.
WSFTP, WS everything was a thing.
Yeah, but it was like doing the, when everybody had a ICQ. You know how you had ICQ, then you had MICQ, and you had IRC, and you had MIRC, and it's just chuck letters in front of things, and it becomes a completely different piece of software.
TrueSpace. I love TrueSpace too. I made a game using that for its graphics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh dear, those were the days. In some respects, I actually miss some of those. Oh, there's a guy made his own using modern components, actually made his own Commodore 64.
Oh, right. Another one. I've seen so many being launched.
Yeah, but he just made it off the shelf components. You can go to JCar and buy these components, and you could make your own. Good old coffee cup, the original.
Yeah.
The original password.
FTP.
No, coffee cup was originally password.
HTML editor.
Password security.
Right.
Yeah, used to store your passwords. Komodo
I
Dragon.
used to do all my websites with the software you can still get called Arachnophilia.
I haven't heard of that one.
It was awesome.
Ooh, LimeWire. eDonkey. My NAS still has the option to use eDonkey.
Yeah.
As a default client. I don't even know if it works anymore.
Probably
That's
does.
forever ago. So, but this is clearly helping. This is not boring the people at all.
No, way back in the day when I was a lad.
Windows Super Internet sharing. I don't know. I'm sure it's around somewhere on the
Talk about
interwebs.
next week.
Yeah, we'll try and
I'll
find
have
it.
a
And
look while you're having your daily read.
I
What?
should take long. I should have plenty of time.
I have plenty of time. Then that's half the show.
Yeah, well, you already know what that's going to be on. If anybody's been watching the news in the last couple of days, so
I can do one for you right now.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I ain't got that loaded now.
Starting at the end of July, Microsoft has begun detecting hosts files that block Windows 10's telemetry servers as a severe security risk. That's you, son. The host file is a text file located in C, Windows, System 32, driver, etc. hosts and can only be edited by a program with administrative privileges. The file is used to resolve host names to IP addresses without using DNS. This file is commonly used to block a computer from accessing a remote site by assigning a host to 127.0.0.1 or 0.0.0.0 IP address. For example, if you add the following line to Windows host file or block users from accessing google.com, as your browser will think you're trying to connect to 127.0.0.1, which is the local computer. But since the end of July, Windows 10 users began reporting that Windows Defender had started detecting modified host files as settings modifier Win32 host files hijack threat. When detected, if a user clicks on the See Details option, they'll simply be shown that they're affected by settings modifier threat and has potentially unwanted behavior. So it seems Microsoft has recently updated their Microsoft Defender definition to detect when their servers were added to the host file. Users who utilize host files to block Windows 10 telemetry suddenly cause them to see the host file hijack detection. If you decide to clean this threat, Microsoft will restore the host file back to its default contents. So there you go. You want to block Microsoft from automatically updating your computer, they're going to mark that as a threat attack against your computer and pop up, please clean this.
But that would only be on their own firewall.
Yeah,
that wouldn't
Windows
be on
Defender will detect it.
Yeah.
It's not their firewall, it's Windows Defender.
Yeah.
Stuff.
But if you're running a third-party firewall, that wouldn't be an issue.
Third-party antivirus.
No, but
Windows
firewall.
Defender's not. Firewall's not Windows Defender.
No, but I'm saying you said if I'm blocking an IP, which I currently am, blocking the Microsoft domains, but I'm using the Windows built-in firewall for that. If
It's looking at the host file, the white firewall doesn't come into it, whether it's on or off, doesn't matter.
So it won't matter then if I'm blocking the IPs.
Not if you're doing it through the firewall, but
Yeah.
if you edit the host file,
Windows
Defender will think you've been attacked.
Yeah, which was that was the easy get out way of doing it. You just take it out of the host file and so it can't do it. But you can just use the firewall to block those ports, so it still physically accesses them. It just can't do anything with them.
Oh, don't!
So.
Now you let the cat out of the bag. Microsoft's going to watch this show.
Yeah, all the Microsoft employees are sitting down waiting for this episode to be released.
They're watching the stream. That's all the people watching the stream right now. They're like, you watch those two guys. They're savvy little bastards, and you know what they're going to do? We'll find out how they get around our auto updates, and we'll screw them for sure. Don't worry about that.
It kind of sounds a bit redundant. I mean, isn't this whole issue we have with Chrome flagging malicious sites that aren't? Similar sort of similar sort of deal.
Yep.
Like, they're not malicious, but because it doesn't know about them, it calls them malicious.
Or if the encryption is slightly old and they decided they're going to deprecate it, whether anybody else on the internet wants to or not.
So I can only see this leading to even more problems because, Microsoft's known for their such solid workflow that they have.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Sorry, guys, if you can hear my keyboard. I normally have a rubber mat under my microphone, but I can't find it. So, unfortunately...
Poor rubber mat, he's probably going to get something for lunch.
So, unfortunately, the keyboard sits like literally half an inch away from the microphone, so you're going to hear it through the mic, unfortunately. Aussie, what's going on? Trying to Patreon, PayPal not sending me code for 2 authentication. Yeah, it sounds about right. I'd love to say your Patreon's a flawless service and you're doing something wrong, but yeah. Yeah. No, it's most likely if you're sending it to your email. In my case, it was going into spam. Otherwise, I think you can get it sent to your phone. I think how I end up having to do it to make it work. I don't know. It's stupid. But this is why I hate two-factor authentication. Like, I have never had, on whether it's my bank, whether it's Google, whether it's Microsoft, I have never had a case where 2FA has actually worked the way it's supposed to work.
Yep.
It either prematurely boots you out, then one of the things you need to access you can't get to because you don't have your phone on you or you can't access that email account at the moment. Or it, like in the case of Xero, which is a program we use for accounting.
I got it, dude.
Yeah.
Wingate,
that's it.
That was it.
That was it.
Wingate. Yes.
That's it. Wingate. I literally just saw that here too.
Back to your rant.
Wingate,
I found it on windowsnetworking.com.
I was looking on 2Cows window networking. I just saw it there
Wingate,
too.
Yeah. We had when I worked at an ISP, there was this guy who decided he was going to tell everybody about our ISP and tell everyone that we were crap. And so he changed his email from address in his email client, Eudora or something, to say it was from support@ourisp.com.au, then telnetted it into our server, changed back one directory, which he shouldn't have been able to do if we had to block that. Thank you, Mr. System Administrator. Got a list of everybody's usernames and then sent out an email to everybody from support. But unfortunately, he didn't know that we all had our own individual accounts, not just support. So he sent an email to me, supposedly from me, who was the only support person there anyway, saying, "Wes, we know our company is crap, blah, blah, blah." And I went and tracked down the headers in the email and found out that it had his computer in the X from header. And he's like, "Oh, that's because I run Wingate and somebody has hacked into my Wingate and they're bloody sending out emails and pretending it was you, but saying it was me." And we're like, "Dude, we went into your account and your bash history file has got you changing back a directory, getting a list of all of the customer usernames, and then you copying back down to your computer to email them. It's you. It's not somebody who's hacked in, unless you gave the hackers your account username, password on your Wingate and on our server. You didn't do it. We can shut down your account. And this is your business you're running from here, so you'll lose lots of money." Okay, I'll be good.
Yeah, Wingate's still around.
Yep.
Wingate version 9. Don't know what they do anymore, but they're still around. But I mean, even right up into Windows 95, NT, all that they still had the Wingate. It wasn't until 98 came with it by default, or a version of it by default. But everything up to 98, basically Wingate was it.
Kaspersky antivirus for Wingate.
Yeah.
Scan your Wingate traffic for malware. That's nuts. Lumen for Wingate. Wingate VPN.
Yeah. I'll have to have a look and see what they're up to these days.
It's owned by a company called Cubic now.
Hmm.
I wonder if they bought the rights to the name or all the software and IP and everything.
Don't know.
Nice.
But,
Over to your news story then.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, two-factor authentication, like we use Zero, and as I said, we have multiple computers logging into the one account, so every time somebody logs in, it logs the other computer out, and then you've got to go through the whole 2FA thing again to log back in. It's like, for crying out loud, just stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not a fan. Not a fan. I can almost, there's almost no situation where I can see 2FA as being beneficial.
I think
At least not a complicated 2FA.
PayPal.
Yeah, I mean, but even then, most people have got one click enabled anyway.
No, I've disabled it. What I hate, you go and buy something from eBay. Hey, you use PayPal. Would you like us to remember this in the future? And then you'll never ever have to ask it again. Yeah, and someone that somehow gets into my eBay account and suddenly buys a Ferrari or something.
Well, that's why I have my PayPal account, so $0 account, and I have to actually transfer money into it.
Yeah, the bank.
Hey, yeah, it's a bank account, but it's a bank account that has no money in it. And it just sits there with nothing in it. And then if I know I'm going to order something, I just transfer it in, and yeah, that's easy. It's not actually most of my that's the same account I use for direct debit. Same thing. So I only know that they're going to take out $100 on this date, so I put the $100 in there the night before, so they can take it out. You know, like it's a $0 account normally, so nobody can do anything with it.
How'd you get so savvy?
Many years of being screwed over.
Oh, don't trust no one. You're like the X-Files and shit, man. David Duchovny right here.
No, I'm the opposite. I trust everybody until they prove me otherwise, and that's the issue right there.
Yeah.
LibreOffice. Speaking of really, really old software. No more Microsoft. No more.
No more Microsoft. That's it.
Bye-bye.
See you, Microsoft. Apple's taken over. Nobody wants you anymore.
Now more Microsoft compatible and still free. With Microsoft banning PC-based Office software, and you don't want to use cloud-based such as 365, LibreOffice will be your best desktop office for choice. Of course, OpenOffice is still local as well, but I give LibreOffice the edge just a little bit over OpenOffice, just because it tends to have slightly better compatibility. I like OpenOffice generally better, but yeah, there's a couple of critical points that just LibreOffice just do it better. But given a choice between Office 2019 and LibreOffice 70 or 7.0 if you put the dots in the way it's supposed to be, your pick of open source top office, LibreOffice. Where are we? Office 2019's applications are frozen in time. They don't ever get updated with new features. So they're basically forcing you to move to the Office 365 that keeps getting better over time. Microsoft's made it clear that sees desktop.
That sounds so sincere, bro. It just keeps getting better. Shit. Oh, sorry.
Microsoft has made it clear that it sees the desktop Office suite future on the cloud, not on the PC. As I saw it, Microsoft recommends 2019, maybe paying an external subscription fee works for you. But if you want the old style Office LibreOffice is now your top choice. And it's free, which is cool. As I said, like OpenOffice, but the new major release, this is the kicker. The major release comes with several improvements. At the top of the list, users who have spent their working lives on Microsoft Office. The best feature is better compatibility with DocX, XLSX, and PPTX files. LibreOffice 7's DocX is now saved in native 13, 16, 19 modes instead of 07 compatibility, which improves interoperability across multiple MS Offices. MS Office's versions. Nice. The program can also export to XLSX with sheet names longer than 31 characters, checkboxes. So basically that's now given it the edge over OpenOffice, where it handles these formats natively, whereas OpenOffice is still a little funky with some of the DocX stuff. The other cool part is that LibreOffice by default has a Skia graphics engine and the Vulkan GPU acceleration. So basically, if you're running an AMD processor and graphics chip, you get huge. Most of the burden of the work is done by the GPU instead of the CPU now. So all the calculations, and as we know, the GPU, the graphics processor, is effectively one big giant maths chip. It does maths. That's what it does. So it passes all that. The GPU can do all that side of it so much faster than the CPU. So all the calculations, all the database handling is all processed by the GPU, which is pretty cool.
It used to be CPU plus math coprocessor.
Math coprocessor.
Now it's CPU plus graphics card, which is your math coprocessor now, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, on the day I had the 386 SX25, and then I bought a DX chip for my SX25, so I had an SX25 processor with the DX insert chip.
Oh.
And then I bought my 486 DX 266.
I was going to say, I got DX 4100.
I had the 4100 later, but I had the 266 first, and then when Duke Nukem came out, I had to go to a 4100 when Duke 3D came out.
Yep.
But before, and then once... No, what came out first? Quake.
Hexen.
You know, your Hexen and Heretic and all those, and
Triad.
Rise of the Triad. Yeah.
Rise of the Triad!
But then,
Hexen wouldn't run on my Cyrix chip.
But it could. There was a little known hack that made it work.
I think you said I had to... It was the installer that was broken.
Yeah, the installer was broken. If you unzip the files and put them in the folders manually, it actually ran. But the installer wouldn't work because they had a deal that was bundled on the Intel motherboard drivers thing, so it was an Intel exclusive.
That was the end of Cyrix for me.
Well, then I went from an AMD 4100 to a Cyrix 586 overdrive chip,
Right.
which was just funky. It was the first CPU I've ever seen with a heatsink on it.
Ah, cool.
And for the day, I was like, you know,
Did you ever have one of those really long Pentium 2 things? I never had one.
the Pentium Pro
Yeah.
or the flip chip.
It was just like the
flip chip.
a RAM one that slips in.
Yeah, they were the Pentium. The predominantly Celrons. Well, most of the Celrons were those. Some of the P2s, most of the Pentium Pros were that. The Pentium Pro's claim to fame was it could run. It came with a software thing called Buddy, or I think it's Buddy, and all the internet cafes used to use them. You could run four virtual machines off one processor.
Nice.
And so the internet cafes used to have one actual physical system, and they'd have four virtual systems all running off that one physical system, so they could cut their costs right down.
That's pretty cool then. I never had one of those chips. Mine were all always the square ones. We went to the launch of the Intel.
You could get the flip chips where if you had a square CPU, you'd buy the flip board and you'd put the CPU into the flip board and drop the chip in. Because the slot boards were generally overclockable, whereas the CPU boards weren't. So if you wanted to overclock them, you'd buy a slot board. But usually it was Cyrix's. Not Cyrix's. It was usually the Celrons.
Right.
Were the flip chips of the lower end processor, but you could buy the higher end, and they were frequency locked on the chip. So you could actually pull the black casing off them and separate them and put a bridge across two jumpers to change the frequency. Or you could buy a flip chip and put a standard CPU into a flip chip and put it in, and then they become unlocked that way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was the day of the hackers back then. I tell you, it was fantastic.
CPU hackers and overclockers.
This is I don't know if this is going to come out. We'll see if you can see it. Probably not. It's probably too far over. Yeah. This is there we go, 486 DX2.
Yep.
And then we went to the 486. Well, that was Intel 486 DX2. And then you had the AMD AMX5.
Yeah, I think I might have had one of them. There was what they have K5 as well.
Yeah, then they had the Cyrix 586.
Yep.
And this is the one I had. The 586
right.
with the heatsink on it. Running at 3.3 volts.
Whoa.
And then these were the overdrive chips, which were basically like a 100, for example, but they were a really solid 100. You could run them at like a 120.
All right.
Here we go. Doom, Quake, 3D bench. Yeah, that was great fun. There's a flip chip in that system there. Actually, there's your flip there. Oh, it's got the Trident 3D graphics Visa card with the expandable 512K slots.
Yeah.
I had that board. This board was great. You could run 72 and 30 pin memory at the same time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there's your early 72 pin. The old 30 pins, I actually found a whole bunch of them a while back, and I turned them into keyrings and gave them out to mates. There you go. These were the Vibra 16 sound cards, the creative Vibra 16s, and you could actually put 30 pin memory chips in them.
Right.
To increase the buffer in the sound card
and stuff.
Yeah. Originally they had I think originally they had two. I think they were like 128K or something like that originally.
Yep.
But you could actually put up to 4 meg, so you could actually have 8 meg of sound onboard sound memory.
Then don't you Doom sound good?
Oh man, all the hacks.
This week's episode of Aussie Tech.
Things you learnt back then that you sort of never. It's completely useless now. Absolutely none of that is relevant today.
No.
Not one bit of it.
Nobody these days has that kind of fun. You just go down and buy your computer from the shop and bring it home, plug it in, off you go.
Yeah, and this was the weird part that people used to freak out. See, I had a 486 DX4100, but it was running the overdrive chip, so it was a 586 133.
Yep.
But it was faster than the Pentium 166s at the time, because it had a faster bus speed, even though the actual frequency wasn't as fast. It could get the data in and out faster. So all my mates went out and bought these Pentium 166s when they come out at $800 a chip or something.
Holy crap!
And I had I had this overdrive chip that was faster than theirs, and they all got their shits with me.
Bloody will.
Yeah. So anyway, and what were we talking about? Where were we? What am I? Oh, LibreOffice. So yeah. So basically, if you don't want to buy Office, and you don't need to buy Office, and you have absolutely no reason to buy it because you don't really need it unless you specifically need it for work or something. Go with LibreOffice. It's great. As I said, I've switched I was running a combination of LibreOffice and OpenOffice because like my work computer came with LibreOffice, so it was on there, and I just installed OpenOffice on here because I did. But I've switched everything over to LibreOffice now because it's just that little bit better than OpenOffice.
Sweet.
But it'll give OpenOffice some. So you watch in 3 months' time now, they'll come back and they'll just that little bit be better than LibreOffice.
Keep them both on there. You can just upgrade and swap.
The problem with that is if you accidentally open like a doc at the moment, if you open a docx and it opens in OpenOffice instead of LibreOffice, it corrupts the file.
Oh no!
Well, it doesn't. It kind of sort of corrupts it, so that's not good.
It will be finally slightly easier to share files, images, links, and other content between Android devices. Google is launching a new Android feature called Nearby Share that enables direct sharing between any device running Android 6 and up. Nearby Share is already available on some Pixel and Samsung phones, and Google says it'll arrive on other devices over the next few weeks. Nearby Share works very much like Apple's AirDrop feature for the iPhone. You simply select the Nearby Share button in the Share menu and then wait for a nearby phone to appear. Then whatever thing you're sharing is sent directly over your transfer method of choice to the other phone. As with AirDrop, you can set your preferred visibility for Nearby Share to different levels of contacts, all, some, or stay hidden. Google says it's even possible to send and receive files anonymously. Nearby Share also shares files directly via whichever method your two phones deem is the fastest. Bluetooth, Bluetooth Low Energy, WebRTC, or peer-to-peer Wi-Fi, which Google says should allow to work offline. Nearby Share works between Android phones and will work with Chromebooks in the coming months, but it can't share to iOS devices, Macs, or Windows machines. Asked if support for any of those were coming, a Google spokesperson said it plans to expand the feature to additional platforms in the future.
I mean, with so many aftermarket apps anyway, it's...
Remember that bump one where you just bump your phones together and it
Yeah,
transfers
well,
files and stuff?
That's default on the Samsungs. They've got that. If you hold your two phones together, they'll do it by default. When you're upgrading, you get the new phone and it says, do you want to copy everything over? So you grab your old phone, stick it next to the new one, and click yes, and it pulls everything off the old phone onto the new one.
Sweet.
So, I mean, there's so many ways to do the same thing now. You know, like
You're going to do it the Google way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mucking around before the show with a screen sharing app and stuff because I couldn't get the Chromecast, Google Chromecast thingy to work, so I put an aftermarket one on. It's like a tenth of the size. It's faster. It seems to work better. It doesn't crash. It has better response time. Like, well, why would I go back to using the Google one? You know. So, but that's, I mean, admittedly, that's one thing I do like about the Google infrastructure is there is a dozen different ways of doing it, and if you've got, like the main I can't think what the ES Explorer is the normal one that I use for other stuff, and it does 95% of things, and you can create a virtual network to log in faster and do stuff. But occasionally you won't do something, so you grab a different app that will. So, you know, it's just like, it's one of those things. There's so many different ways of doing it that it's good, and it means that you can have 2 or 3 outs. You know, if something doesn't work, there's other ways of doing it. So,
Throw another one on there.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, and that's like I was looking for a webcam software to monitor my my laser cutter CNC router thing that I've got.
Yep.
I wanted to monitor that with I've got a really old, like ancient candy bar phone almost, Android phone. And the first 5 apps I put on, they'd run for like 5 minutes and they'd just crash because the phone had run out of memory. It's got nothing, you know. And I just happened to be randomly scrolling through them, and there's this one called like Just Webcam Light. And like that's literally all it is. You click the button, it turns the flashlight on, it turns the camera on, and it streams it directly to an IP address automatically. Like that's it, and there's nothing, you can't do anything. And it's perfect. It's been running flawless for 2 weeks without a crash.
Yep.
You know, and it's like a 2 meg file. All those other ones were 40, 50 meg. You know, this thing's like 2 meg. Yeah, and it works perfectly. So, yeah, I do like that. But things I don't like. Here we go. Australia to charge Google and Facebook for content because Australia is incredibly intelligent. So,
Murdoch.
Yeah. Basically, Australia is going to require Google, and well, actually, this is because according to the Australian government, it's not their idea, and they don't want to have anything to do with it. But anyway, Australia will require Google and social media giant Facebook to pay for the content they're using from the country, the nation's treasurer, said on Monday. In a Twitter post, Josh Frydenberg said, as the technology of the digital platforms has evolved, so too has their market dominance. By creating a mandatory code or law, which is not, it's legislation at best, we're seeking to be the first country in the world that successfully requires their social media giants to pay for original news content. In a separate blog, Frydenberg said Google and Facebook were already among the most powerful and valuable companies in the world. For every $100 every 100 AU spent by advertising in Australia and online advertising, excluding classifieds, $47 AU goes to Google, 24 goes to Facebook, and 29 goes to other participants. In Australia, this market's worth almost $9 billion a year. It's grown more than 8-fold since 2005. Well, that's irrelevant. Citing the latest report of Australian Competition Consumer Commission, Frydenberg said that 98% of online searches on mobile devices are with Google, while Facebook has approximately 17 million users who are connected to its platform for at least half an hour a day. It has created a level of market concentration of power that we never envisioned by our regulatory systems, he said. The goal is to protect consumers, improve transparency, and
To
add...
do what? Hang on, what was that?
I'm sorry, I almost got through that
Won't
sentence with a straight
somebody
face.
please think of the children? We're saving children's lives by charging Google. You don't understand. We'll put it all into education.
Improve transparency and address the power imbalance between the parties. So, basically what they're going to do is they're going to go,
cold tonight. I don't know.
hey, they're going to go, hey Google, you're going to take an ad story that you've just directed a heap of traffic to, and you're going to let people see that. So can we have some money for that? And Google's going to go, hey, guess who's not appearing on our top 100 pages anymore?
Suddenly there's no Australian news to be found.
But the upside to this is that a few people I know are starting independent newspapers again, because all the big ones are... This is a classic example. They got too greedy, they expect too much, and they expect them to be the only people come to for news. So there's people I know who are starting community-based, independent-based, reporter-based newspapers. So they have, like, say, our town here, for example, in Rosewood, we actually had a community paper, but they shut it down. So two of the top editors actually got together. They're both journalists. They've now started it back up again. They run whatever they want because it's independent, so they can run the stories the way they're supposed to be run. They get to pick and choose what media they get to put on. They get to say where the media goes and how they get to distribute it. And they get to go to Google, and with a bit of SEO and a bit of manipulation and a bit of organic results, they'll eventually get decent rankings. And people will be able to search their stories for free because that's how it's supposed to work. So what's going to happen now, once Australia, the government, tries to enforce this, Google and Facebook are going to go, well, okay, we just won't display your stories or your company or anything about you at all, ever, and we'll give these independent guys a go, and they can have our ad revenue because they're putting ads on their website that we're paying for. So, yeah, good luck with that.
Now I have the Wiki Tribune as well.
Yeah.
They're an independent newspaper with real journalists and stuff.
Yeah. They're starting to come back now because all the big papers are effectively dead.
Shite.
And the ones that are still, I mean, the other ones that are kind of still around are online only, a lot of them now, and you've got to pay for all of them. You know, so...
Oh, you wanted to read that interesting news article. Well, you better give us some money. This is extortion.
What's really funny is the first 3 pages I went to read this story, guess what? They're behind a paid firewall. So I went to...
You're using a ad blocker.
No, they're actually legit full-on... No, not ad blocked, actually full-on legit paid firewalls.
Oh,
so I went to a Taiwanese newspaper to get this one.
You want to be a subscriber to every individual website just so you can read the news, right?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, and they're all owned by the same person, so it's not like you couldn't just like have one subscription for the whole lot.
One person owns so many newspapers,
Yeah.
and
TV stations.
Hang on, Home Alone.
Yeah, not just newspapers, but TV stations. You've seen the I think they call it the Puppet Report.
Yep.
And there's literally
the
like
one where they switch to every TV station in America running the exact same story with the exact same words.
Same clips, same everything. Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. But there's one for an Australian one too, where they show all the Australian news doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so basically this is the best possible outcome that these small independents are chasing at the moment. Like, they're ecstatic that this is a thing because this is an opt-in. So the newspapers have to opt in to say we want, and not just newspapers, we're talking Channel 7, Channel 9, like all the broadcasters, but they have
ABC or SBS.
Yeah, they have to opt in to have this, so they can say if they do or don't want it, and they're all going to opt in because they get a chance. And there's what is it, $60,000 per offence or whatever the amount was to every time they do it. So there's this possibility they're going to get this whole get rich quick scheme.
Yeah.
Whereas the independents like, yeah, no, come on, crawl our website, do your best, we dare you, you know, like.
Yeah. Suck it all up, Google.
Because not only are they getting the throughput traffic from Google and the crawlers getting the organic searches, they're going to have ads on their website, so they're going to get paid from the advertiser for whoever's putting those ads up. But most of them are going to be Google ads, so they're going to be getting advertiser revenue plus Google ad revenue. And once that's going to bring their numbers up, they're going to be able to have a larger follower base. So that just by the nature of having more people, all those numbers are going to go up. So it's going to be a self-reciprocating system that they're going to increase in numbers just because the other ones are too stupid to figure it out.
Yep.
They haven't even got to do any extra work. They're literally being handed millions of viewers now.
Give me that, whoever owns all those newspapers that we don't know.
Oh yeah, look, as much as it's the dumbest one. Well, okay, one of the dumbest ideas they've had this week. It's also, I think, very, very telling just how old media is.
Because blocking the Pirate Bay sure worked, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, man, I don't know if you've ever seen there's a movie called The Newsies or The Newsboys. And it's set in the era of Randolph Hearst and Pulitzer and all these big global news corporations. You know, they had The World, they had The Sun, they had all these newspapers. And as far as they're concerned, they ruled with what they wrote in their newspapers. You know, they're going to tell you who they're going to vote for and that person's going to get in. They're going to tell you how much to pay your workers and they're going to get in. They're going to tell the trolley strike workers to go on strike and for how long for. Like, what they write in their newspaper is what happens, not the other way around. Something happens and they write about it. No, they write about it and it happens. And basically what happened was the newsboys who, you know, standing on the corner, he read all about it sort of deal, to cover this war that the newspapers were having, they bumped up the price of the newspapers, but not to the public. They bumped up the price of the newspapers to the newsboys by, you know, whatever, it was 1 cent a paper, which doesn't seem like much, but when you're only making like 3 cents a paper, now you're only making 2 cents a paper. You've got to double your output to make the same amount of money. And so the news is like, no, screw it, we're done. We're going to strike. And all the newspapers are like, no, we're telling you can't do that. They're like, no, but you're not listening. We're the ones that distribute your newspaper. We are ultimately who people listen to, and we won't be treated like this, and we're just not going to do anything until you put prices back the way they were.
Yep.
And this went on for a couple of months, but eventually they started getting scabs coming into work, and they started knocking them off and stuff. But then the news is like, fine, you don't listen to us. We're going to now distribute our own newspaper to everybody who we would have been distributing yours to, but ours is going to be free, and we're going to be telling everybody else to do the same thing that we're doing. So suddenly the newsboys created this entire nationwide strike of the working boys and girls, as they called it, so basically all the child labour. And they shut down England. They shut down New York and the Bronx and all that for like 3 months. And nothing happened because without runners, without newsboys, without deliverers, without rouseabouts, you don't have business. And they figured that out. They called their bluff. They shut them down, and then, you know, whatever it was, 3 months later, whenever the strike ended, they got their pay rises. They got, you know, the things they demanded, and they got their working conditions improved because literally the newspapers got too greedy.
Yeah.
And guess what's going to happen again? You know, so literally exactly the same thing is about to happen 100 years later. Or not even.
My foot, here's a gun.
80 years later. You know, so, no, I'm all for it. I can bring it on is all I can say. This is going to be one hell of a ride. So,
GPS technology company Garmin is recovering from a recent ransomware attack and has reportedly received a decryption key to recover its files, suggesting it may have paid a ransom. The site found that the attackers used the wasted locker ransomware and reported they demanded $10 million as ransom. Now, it also uncovered that Garmin is using a decryption key to regain access to its files, suggesting the company may have paid that ransom demand or some other amount. The wasted locker software uses encryption, which has no known weaknesses, so the assumption is that to break it, the company must have paid the attackers for decryption key. Garmin was the victim of the ransomware attack at the end of July, when hackers succeeded in shutting down services including Garmin Connect, a network which syncs data for Garmin customers using wearables such as watches. Affected systems came back online within a few days, but services continue to be slow for some users. As well as the inconvenience for wearable users, the hack had some people worried about more serious consequences as well. Some aviation navigation software like the Fly Garmin app was also affected, meaning it could have been in breach of the FAA requirements. The company reassured customers that no customer data was stolen and that no payment information from the Garmin Pay payment system was accessed or stolen either. On Twitter, the company announced last week, "We are happy to report that many of the systems and services affected by the recent outage, including Garmin Connect, are returning to operation. Some features have temporary limitations while all of the data is being processed."
What were they running? End of life Windows XP or something?
Windows 7, I was just
Well, Windows
reading
7 is end of life now.
Probably because governments are worried that Windows 7's reaching end of life and hackers are ramping up their exploits for Windows 7 now.
Yeah, but the governments and the big corporations that are running it are paying their Microsoft their ransom fee to keep the updates coming.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're still going to
There'll
be
just
covered.
be end users who turn into a botnet.
Well, the CIA is concerned with that. There was a thing saying, especially with everybody home at the moment, the amount of internet traffic going to a regular home PC, especially in these poorer countries where they are using Windows XP and Windows 7 still, they are worried that that's going to be an actual legitimate problem.
And where are a lot of the banks and other financial companies keeping their support centers now very cheap?
Well, yeah, I mean...
Yeah, so they'll have access to bank systems to read your customer details when you ring up for help with your bank transfer.
Well, they
or something,
don't now.
And if those computers are taken over.
We went to pay an invoice from another telco we use today, and their web system is down, and their phone system is not functioning because they got so many, I'm guessing, extra lines that are going overseas now. And when you finally ring through to the support center to say, "Hey, I need to pay my bill," they say, "Oh no, we can't take your details. The only option left would be to go to a post office." So at least they're honest.
Pay your bills at the post office now. Oh man.
Yeah, it's like being 1980s all over again. Which I don't mind actually, because we got a really lovely post office here. But
do they want you to fax it in or what?
Well, just a bit. Yeah, well.
The fax machine is just a glorified waffle iron.
Our post office. I actually had to get a what was I doing the other day? Oh,
I wore an onion on my belt, which was the fashion in those days.
Our home loan is through the government, and when we reapplied, when the interest rates dropped, we reapplied to It happened right on our third year, like literally 2 days after interest rates dropped. Our 3 years contract was up, so it was up for renegotiation.
Nice.
So we renegotiated back with them again, and they put us back down to, I think we're on 2.1% instead of, we were on like 6%.
Yep.
So it dropped hugely. Weirdly, our repayments didn't drop though. It's strange. We're still making the same repayments, but the repayments curve is a lot quicker. Anyway,
right, yeah.
But yeah, we had to actually fax and approve. They had to send us, well, they could have posted us the approval form and then we could have posted it back, or they faxed us the approval form and we signed it and we faxed it back. Because they don't have a scanner or a printer in this office. They literally said that. She said, where the entire housing department does not own a scanner or a printer that is publicly accessible, like they can use to print emails and stuff. I said, "But you've got a fax machine." She goes, "Yes, we've got 5 fax machines actually." I'm like, seriously? So I had to actually go to the post office because guess who's still got fax machines?
Yeah.
Went to the post office and faxed from there at $1.50 a page.
Yeah. Jeez. How many pages was that?
It was only a couple, thankfully. I would have gone bloody broke sending a fax otherwise.
Man.
I thought it was hilarious. But yeah, no, I thought it was good. One thing, we're getting towards the end of the show. I just want to do something I don't normally do. I'm going to recommend a YouTube video that people really should watch. It's of course we all know we know the Beatles and Paul McCartney and all that sort of stuff. This is a bit of an older one. I think it's 2011. I was trying to find it. It's Abbey Road, which, if you know anything about them, Abbey Road basically is where they did their basically all their albums, pretty much. But he did a thing from there called Chaos and Creation, and what it basically was, it was, I guess, almost a history lesson, effectively, from him right through to the Beatles and beyond. And it's a really interesting sort of history, and has a really nice feel and vibe. And he explains some of the old instruments they used to use, everything from 4-tracks and really early synthesizers and all sorts of stuff. And he sings a couple of songs that he's never released, and he shows you some behind the scenes stuff. And then towards the end of it, they create a jam session with the audience, and they riff off some tracks at the end, and it's just a nice, relaxing sort of trip down memory lane. He does a fantastic Elvis too, by the way. Like he's
Thank you very much.
I think he does a better Elvis than Elvis does, actually. What was that?
He doesn't do Elvis too good anymore.
It's on all the early album covers. It was played by Bill Black, and they would be baby
here somewhere, I
strapped
think.
to the roof rack.
I don't know, where is it? I might have missed it.
You'd be so lonely, baby. You'd be so lonely. You'd be so lonely you could die.
But it's definitely worth going and checking out. And he explains how they, especially later on with Sgt. Pepper, how they came up with some of the more interesting sound effects, and keeping in mind that it was all still analog back then. There wasn't really digital. I mean, there's digital in terms of there was like a 4-track tape player, which was, I guess, technically digital, but effectively it's all analog. Like they had an analog loop machine, and like there's a piano squeeze box sort of thing going on here, and it was great. So it's called Paul McCartney, Chaos and Creation at Abbey Road. If you're even remotely interested in musical history of any sort of anything, it's definitely worth the check out. There's a couple other similar ones as well, but this one sort of seems to have a really nice flow to it. So yes, not something I normally do, but something I think people might enjoy. I stumbled across it the other day, one of those random YouTube recommends things. I went, oh, here we go.
And it was actually
actually a really good one. I'm like, yay! The algorithm works.
Google Home smart speakers, the company dryly warns in a note buried deep in a support page, can incorrectly record their users even when they haven't first said an activating wake phrase like "Hey G." So it happens that, at least for a brief period of time this summer, US, I would imagine, Northern Hemisphere peoples, those microphone-enabled devices were doing exactly that. The company admitted Monday, following a report by Protocol, that it had updated an unspecified number of Google Assistant devices to respond to auditory cues beyond the user-specified wake phrase. Google said this was a mistake that was quickly fixed, but it did not appear to address the larger privacy concerns that such a mistake signifies. After all, how are users supposed to trust a live microphone if they're home, if someone can remotely update it to be even more invasive without their knowledge? It's not the first time that Google Assistant-enabled products have acted contrary to whatever stated privacy protections they had. In 2019, we learned that not only were Google Homes recording users unprompted, but some of those recordings were then sent to real humans to listen to. Amazon's Alexa-enabled devices were also doing this, as was Facebook's Portal. Following a backlash, Google announced users could opt into something called a voice and audio activity, which permits people to listen to your Google Assistant recordings. Understandably, then, any change to a Google device that makes it more prone to activate and possibly record users is worth scrutinizing. A difficult task when the update is made behind closed doors. The development was flagged by a Redditor who noticed their Google Assistant-enabled device was listening for a smoke alarm, and after hearing it, had pre-programmed set of actions ready to go. Burned something in the kitchen, and the cheap $10 smoke detector went off, wrote the Reddit user, who noticed the change and shared a screenshot of the notification. Then I got a notification on my phone that Google heard the smoke detector going off. While it's not 100% clear, it's possible someone at Google jumped the gun ahead of a new partnership with security company ADT, enabling Google devices to pick up on smoke alarm sounds like just the thing such a partnership would herald. And as I mentioned, Google Nest speakers do actually listen for critical sounds like alarms or glass breaking as part of the Nest Aware subscription service. A recent software update enabled these alerts on some of our speakers that didn't have a Nest Aware subscription, a spokesperson from Google said, but we've since rolled that back. So they'll let you know if someone's smashed in your back window to break in and steal your stuff, or if the smoke alarm's going off in the kitchen, you don't hear it.
I mean, you only need to check your Facebook feed after you've had a conversation with somebody to prove that everything's listening all the time.
Yep.
I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about these Sky, what are they called, Sky Credit cards. Never heard of them before. Just randomly was chatting to somebody about them at work, and that day, Sky Credit Card all over my Facebook feed.
Yep.
So
you don't have to do a Google search for it on your phone or anywhere. It just suddenly appears.
Yeah. It's not new. Everyone knows they're listening. Everybody. You basically have to not be connected to the internet to have any sort of privacy these days. Your phone's listening pretty much all the time. Most laptops, webcam mics, pretty much anything is always on. I was talking to my daughter about a year and a half ago about going on holidays to the Gold Coast, and suddenly I got all these ads in Facebook about Gold Coast holiday places and deals and stuff. I was like, I didn't Google search for this. I didn't type this into Facebook. We were just talking in the lounge room. Yep. And the people go, let's put some tape over your mic. I mean, that tape over the mic does nothing. People sound
like the funny thing that people have talked about, that if you switch the microphone off on your Google Home and then say the hey passphrase, Google says, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. The microphone is switched off.
Yeah, it doesn't.
How did you know I said it, man? You're switched off.
It doesn't actually. It doesn't turn the microphone off. It blocks the transmission to the activation core. So it sends back a recorded message saying that it can't actually hear you. The physical microphone is still connected, but it can't pass through. Well, they say it can't pass through, but I mean, if it's passing enough data to know that it's trying to request a call, then it knows the mic's off. Well, how much is it putting through? So, but...
You think it's just deactivated the phrase?
Yeah.
Basically.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a software deactivation, not a hardware cut.
Yeah.
Which I can, like the one down in my shed, I've mangled this. The actual speaker blew up in the Mini, so I actually opened it up and hooked it up into the back end of the stereo. So it's... You
were playing Baby Shark too loud again, weren't you?
Maybe. So it was... it's hooked up into the stereo, but now I've basically got Google Home through the stereo, so I can do all the, play playlists and stuff through the stereo. So it actually sounds good. But the same thing with that. Like, they'll tell you what, they're on one thing I'll give them credit for, regardless of whether you think they're spying, which they are, but regardless of any other stuff, the ability of the microphone to be at the other end of my workshop with the speaker it's playing the songs through, cranking, sitting on top of, and I can talk to it from the other end of the workshop and it can hear me and interact that far away with that sort of clarity.
Play the next song. I don't like that.
Yeah, exactly. And if nothing else, that in itself, I mean, that's the sort of you'd have trouble getting a human to hear that in that sort of environment, So I think that's actually, for me, I find that actually fascinating. But speaking of Google is closing their Play Music. Because apparently they had one.
Yeah, I guess. Now they got YouTube music.
So when you say, hey, play such and such a song, it goes, that's Spotify playlist. So even the Google Minis and the Google Homes use Spotify as default. So what was the point of having a Google Music service if you're not even going to implement it into your own hardware?
Yeah.
But basically, starting in October and wrapping up by Christmas, effectively, they're going to shut Google Music. You can transfer your music to, if you've got existing music, it will let you keep it, but won't let you order more. And they're closing the actual streaming part of it. And there is a transfer tool that you can move your music over, and it's something to do with YouTube Music now, and it will automatically update your subscription in YouTube so that those songs in YouTube Music don't have ads or something like that. Anyway, it's a bit. I've read 2 or 3 different stories, and none of them cover that part of it very well. But so I'm guessing that's what they're doing. I'm guessing they're switching off the Google Play Music and they're implementing the Google YouTube Music. Something. I think that's how it works. So yeah, so that's just something else to be wary of. But as I said, like, I don't understand why that's not a default thing in the Google Mini, searching their own infrastructure.
Spotify must be paying a ton of money.
Must be. I'll tell you one thing that bugs me no end about Spotify: the ads are twice as loud as the music. It's horrendous. Because I have one in Bub's room, just plays like just soft sleeping music sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you'll be getting this. Thank you for listening to Spotify. It's like, why? Why is the ad 3 times louder than?
Somebody did a video on YouTube about how they record Spotify ads, and he's there with like trumpets and drums. Get Spotify Premium or I'll keep doing this.
It's not far off it, I'll tell you. It's horrendous.
Thanks for listening to the Aussie Tech Heads show, broadcast weekly. We can be found at facebook.com/Aussie Tech Heads, twitter.com/Aussie Tech Heads, and youtube.com/Aussie Tech Heads. Also now at patreon.com/Aussie Tech Heads. Sign up for $4 a month, $10 a month, or from several other tiers. See the site for details. Email us glenn.warlock at aussietechheads.com.au. You can hear Aussie Tech Heads on aussietechradio.com. 24/7 back-to-back play of some of the best tech-related shows around Australia and New Zealand. New shows added each Friday. See you next time.
See ya. Bye.